bases. Do we refuse anything is my question. Finland is in great trouble. We know that there are now US bases coming to Norway and Denmark. They are not outspokenly NATO, but they are US bases. Do we want them? So Finland is in great trouble, but so is the whole world. A major war would mean that the nuclear powers of US, UK, and France would be facing Russia and China. Pure Armageddon. Now we need all suggestions and ideas possible to stop this madness together. The floor is yours. We are many here. So as Reiner said, we have to be short. We have to collect all ideas, and maybe we have to meet again shortly with more time and more ideas, and to make them better and even more powerful. I'm so glad that you are all here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulla, for these powerful introductions, which shows the dangerous situation. You know, I personally will not continue with the dangerous situation. I think you all know in the Ukraine crisis, in the NATO expansion, and in the reaction of Russia, there is a danger for a big war, for a great war, which includes nuclear weapons. And we all know the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. We know that this will be the rest and the end of Europe, in the minimum. Maybe it will be even the end of life of our planet. You know, for me, I will say 3 points. First point is, for me, this NATO expansion to Sweden and Finland is not a surprise. They were preparing it for many years. Finland and Sweden was over the last years a part of all NATO maneuvers, a part of the NATO infrastructure, the communication systems of all the events NATO developed. Even Finnish and Swedish troops were part of NATO international interventional engagements. So it is a long step. And this shows first that the argument of Ukraine in the background is a lie. It is what the famous writer Naomi Klein was calling shock therapy. You are using an unexpected event which changed a lot of things for realizing things which you have in mind for many years because of the change of the public opinion, which you are influenced by a massive propaganda of the mass media, of the politicians. So this is typical shock therapy. They were using this in other cases too, but again, this is the background for me of these expansion now, is to use Sweden, and it's a pity to say, Social Democrats and Greens and even left parliament parties are using this opportunity for fulfilling a step they want to realize since years. This makes it not better, but this again shows that war is misused for many things people had in mind in advance and they want to realize. But this shows for me that we as peace movement also have to develop a long-term strategy for coming back to a Europe of cooperation and dialogue, to develop a new peace structure or peace architecture for Europe. And for me, this webinar is one start point for this discussion about the new peace architecture. We lost a very important partner in our fight for peaceful Europe. Finland has a long tradition as a cooperation partner between East and West. We have not forgotten Helsinki 75. We have not forgotten the whole OSCE process and the role of Finland. And it's a pity to say that we will not celebrate the 50 years anniversary of the KSZE agreement in 2025 in Helsinki. Why we should go to Helsinki when Helsinki is a NATO partner? We should look for another neutral country. It could be Switzerland, it could be Austria, or it could be Ireland. So this is also a pity, and this is also really pity for the peace movement in Finland, which was doing a lot of things to prepare this event. First of all, my first point is we should not give up to prepare events to the 50 years anniversary of the KSZE 2025. And my first suggestion is, and maybe we have a discussion about it, we as peace movement should meet next year in Finland for a big peace conference discussing about the new peace architecture, peace structure, and cooperative elements for Europe. We go demonstrative to Finland and show that we want to have another role of Finland as a typical stupid NATO partner like all the others. The second point, I think, and this is a point, I think you noticed it, IPB, the International Trade Unions Confederation and the Olaf Palme Center were launching 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, the new Olaf Palme report too, Our Shared Future. And I think this report, developed not only by these 3 organizations, but by 30 prominent experts, scientists, politicians, diplomats, could be a background for the discussion about a common future in Europe, about new ideas for cooperation, dialogue, and disarmament. We should not give up, never give up the ideas of disarmament. So my second thought is, let us promote this report. Let us distribute the report in the different countries. Let us always, and in many parts of the world, develop launching events like IPB and others have done it in Stockholm and also in the US. And now next year we will have a launching event in Africa. We need to promote these ideas to the public, to the people in our countries. The people must see, against this massive propaganda, that there is an alternative to confrontation and war. And this alternative has one name, it's common security. So let us try to develop these thoughts and activities. My third thought is we need a common, much stronger work together. You know, many of us were engaged in many fields in the past, in many activities around the Baltic Sea, the common security issues, anti-war activities, environmental activities, and. We have to bring it now together in a new coalition against war and for cooperation and disarmament. And this is a huge challenge for all of us, because we have to overcome old bridges and old problems, old fights, for a new, how to say, coalition of sensibility, of understanding that peace is the most important issue. These are, for me, some consequences. And this is combined with the fourth point. And this is, we need you and all courageous people. We are never in such a defensive position like now. Never. We were staying with the back at the wall. But we have enough courageous people which are willing to continue fighting for peace and disarmament. Let them bring together. Let them discuss their ideas for a peaceful future in Europe. Then I'm quite optimistic that we will overcome this horrible media and politician hate campaign for war and confrontation and come back to a Europe of cooperation and disarmament. We can do it. We have a chance. We also have the power and the people. But let us bring them all together, give them new power in this very difficult situation. I think then we can do it. The guideline could be the new Olaf Palme report. The aim is cooperation and disarmament. Even when this is definitely, again, we lost the fight in Finland and Sweden, but losing fights is, again, to put the troops together, to say the military terms, for next activities and next actions for a better future. We are responsible for surviving, and that is the need. We have to act and to continue our activities. Thank you. These are my introductional thoughts. And now I welcome all the newcomers. And we are quite a big crowd today. So please excuse when I not immediately see everyone when he or she is raising her or his hand, but I will try my best. So the floor is open for all your thoughts and ideas. And the first hand I see is from Michael Tellmann. And please try to be in time and don't speak longer than 3 minutes. Michael, the floor is to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm here just only as a member of Attac France. I'm German, but I work in France also. And I'm not a representative of Attac France. So I will try to suggest some questions. First question, our peoples all over Europe, I could say all over the world, for instance, is paralyzed by the moral opposition against this war. Very often, it's not possible to have a real political discussion. So how we can change this situation? I agree with the perspective to have a conference next year, but what shall we do up to next year? What are the objectives to achieve to have a real discussion? Because, and that's the second question I want to pose to my second question is, the war of Russia is only an appearance of a deeper problem. That's the confrontation on the global level between United States, Europe, China, and also Russia. But we are not able to make a seminar all over the world, but we have to see that it doesn't enough to talk about the war. We have to talk about the sources of this war. And now the third question. I see in the movements and the social movements that they are very fixed on their objectives, climate, social problems, and so on. But a minority sees that all those struggles can be successful if we don't achieve to end the war and to prevent a bigger war. How can we connect the struggles in the different political fields with the struggle for peace? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you very much to be in time. I see now 3 more hands. The first one is Heidi, the second one is Gudrun, and the second one is Margareta. So Heidi, the floor is to you, and maybe you can make on your camera when possible when you are speaking. Heidi, welcome.
So I try. I hope you can hear me. I'm actually in Geneva in the Women's Peace Builder meeting, and here we were discussing with NATO representatives also. This was a kind of crazy debate. I'm a member of WILP, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and we have a long history of opposing militarism. And on the other side, I see, especially with several of my colleagues now, that the old mechanism always come back. It's a lot of fear which is pushed by media, and immediately the easiest, I would say the easiest response is militarism, military alliance, to feel somehow protected by weapons. And we have to start and restart every time again that there is a need to find these alternatives. And Reiner and Ulla and others have already expressed this. This is a political question, but it's also a psychological question, because fear is something which is real, and we really have to an enormous solidarity in order to find ways out of this fear without weapons and with solidarity. One proposal that I would like to propose here, because I was talking with my colleague that some of you know also, Gunnar Shahir from Armenia. They have proposed very concretely already before the Palme report came out, kind of comprehensive security debate between Georgia and Armenia. And there are many, many countries over the world where these very localized, but also, of course, international approaches are there. And I think we need to use this localized approach as we do also in the whole women, peace and security agenda to prove that is possible and there is a need. This is, of course, not against what I see from Tamara, who is also from Canada, that we have to protest concretely against NATO, but we have to really struggle and with historic lessons to fight against fear and, or put it in a positive way, freedom from fear to work together. So thank you, and I have to leave you quite soon because I'm very, very much involved here. Thank you.
But thank you, Heidi, that you were joining us from Geneva and interrupt your meeting to be with us. So the next one, I can't see her hand any longer, but now I see her again, is Gudrun. Gudrun, the floor is to you, and I see the hand of Susan. Susan is now on my list. Gudrun.
Yes, thank you. Dankeschön. Ich spreche auch Deutsch, wenn notwendig ist. I am a very practical person. I want you to know that I work for the Feministic Initiative in Sweden, and I'm in one of our local committees here in Göteborg. And as you might know, we are having an election year this year, and much of this rush with the NATO question depends on the election year in Sweden, I think. But what I want to suggest is that I have a list with persons I send all peace letters, all peace information to, as often as I get the information in my mailbox. And if you want me to add you to the list, or if you want to send some information to me, I can spread it on my list. And the list goes over from Denmark to Sweden, Finland, yes, sometimes anyway. And so I'm a very practical person, and that's what I can do. I also belong to Women for Peace here in Sweden, and yeah, that's what you have to know about me, I think. So I'll write my address, my mail address in the chat, and you can add whatever you want to my list, your address, or if you want to send me information, you can do that.
Thank you, Gudrun, and please put your address in the chat. The next is Margareta.
Thank you.
Yes, this is the high noon of the feminist. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be invited. I'm Margareta Kienen-Nellen, living in Bern, Switzerland. I was a socialist MP for 16 years, and now I am working for Basel Peace Office, for the board, and mainly also for peace women across the globe, doing also a program in Eastern Ukraine since 2020. In other words, I have been to Ukraine many times, also as a former head of Human Rights Committee of OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. So much to me. Switzerland, briefly, and then I will come to my main points or questions. Switzerland has been, the Swiss government rather has been put under huge pressure by United States to also opt for the purchase of F-35 battle jets. The Socialist Party with the Green and other organization is collecting signatures for an initiative which will be brought before the vote in about half a year, prohibiting our government from buying this American fighter jet. The chances to succeed with this initiative, unfortunately, due to the war in Ukraine, have been reduced, but we still will mobilize, and who knows, we also have army officers and army people who are against that fighter. You know, there are always various lobbies for all these battle jets, so maybe we can still succeed. Now, about my main points. I share everything which has been said so far, and I would also very much appreciate to get all the links to reports as I am publishing on this matter, especially publishing against NATO. What I've been writing and thinking about, I think you have mentioned it, Reiner. We must bring the climate youth worldwide and the peace movement worldwide together, because there is no climate change without peace, and there is no peace without climate change. That's my first point. Second, the NATO summit in Madrid. I've been just researching on the website of NATO. I think there should be a very visible demonstration before this NATO summit in Madrid on 29 and 30 of June of this year. If I am not wrong, when I came back from Ukraine last October, I read on that website of NATO that in their new strategic concept, they were also discussing the strategic positioning of NATO in the Asian Pacific area. Later on, and today, such passages do not figure anymore on the NATO website. However, what I have just seen 15 minutes ago, it is still on the NATO website that NATO not only helps to defend the territory of its members, I quote, but also engages where possible and when necessary to project its values further afield, prevent and manage crisis, stabilize post-conflict situation. I mean, this is all but a big lie. I don't have to lecture on that any further. I do not know any positive success for peace of NATO.
Margarete, can I ask you to come to an end?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
I do. As a former MP, you must stop me. You are right. Okay, two more points. It has been said, the battle on Ukrainian and therefore European soil is nothing else than a military exercise ground, a horrible one, to prepare a much bigger fight, air, sea, nuclear, along the Chinese coastline in Asia, against the real enemy for US hegemony, and this is People's Republic of China. Last point, and I think this is very important, we must organize a campaign against any more investments in BlackRock, as BlackRock gathers the main investors in nuclear armament industry, and no more investment by anybody in the armament industry. I mean, we have to attack the problems at the root, and this means no more investments. So this must be a campaign, as much as there has been some successful campaign to no more invest in CO2, fuel, gas industries. Thanks. These were my points. Thank you.
Thank you, Margareta. And please put your address, your email address in the chat. People were asking for that. I have 3 more hands. This is in Susan, the next, Eamon, the next after Susan, and then Ulla Klötzer. And before Tamara will speak, I would like to say some words to the NATO summit, because the NATO summit and the actions, the questions are raised by several people. And I'm a member of the preparatory committee for the actions in Madrid, so I will inform a little bit about the activities. But first of all, the next one is Susan.
Yes, thank you so much. And Margareta, what you have said actually leads very much into what I would like to say from the perspective of the United States and, of course, US hegemony. And the elephant in the room, as it were, or the glass ceiling is, of course, the United Nations Security Council and the 5 members of the Security Council, and the US in particular, which dominate the entire scene. And the Fellowship of Reconciliation USA, of which I am part, is very committed to addressing this issue from a US perspective, and we feel it's our responsibility to help in taking the lead with this. So it's important to keep in mind that the United Nations General Assembly, created in 1945, actually established the United Nations, the Security Council, and appointed the 5 permanent members in 1949. The UN General Assembly also has the power to dismantle or reform. And unless we, the people of this world, come together to insist that the United Nations dismantle, reform, unless we chip away at this, we will have no solution to the problems of the climate catastrophe, to nuclear holocaust, to the allocation of our resources to weapons and the pockets of a few, rather than, of course, giving food and medicine and homes to the hungry all over the world. So just to say, everything we talk about will not have an impact unless we go to change the structure of the United Nations and Security Council in particular. The FOR USA actually is thinking of a plan and a way to do this. And we would welcome being on a team with others internationally to move in this direction. And I'm just going to share in the chat a letter from FOR USA that we sent to the Swedish Fellowship of Reconciliation, basically grieving our sister countries' move in the direction of NATO. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. The next is Eamon. I hope I speak your name quite right. Eamon, the floor is to you.
Yes, thank you, Reiner. Eamon here. I'm speaking to you from Ireland, from Dublin. We are very disappointed to hear Finland and Sweden making this application to NATO. We could easily be left as one of the last of the few neutral countries. So I think it's very important from our perspective to speak up for the positive value of neutrality, because the propaganda war would have us believe that neutral countries are somehow opting out of their responsibilities. We believe that the neutral status of a country is a very important active role in peace interventions and to actively working on peace building rather than on warmongering. Now, we know Ireland is not a member of NATO. However, we are under certain pressures to become a member of NATO. And we consider that more and more the European Union is a mechanism which is driving militarism, through various institutions within the European Union, like PESCO and the European Defence Fund. Ireland remains outside NATO, but is a member of PESCO, and militarization is a pressure on us. However, we remain neutral, and as far as we know, our most recent figure is that 70% of Irish people support neutrality. So we will be actively continuing to speak for a positive neutrality. And the notion that being non-aligned allows us to work harder and be more active for peace. Neutral countries need to speak up, because Ireland, like Finland and Sweden, through its government and through European Union pressures, is being pushed away from its neutrality. Neutrality has been very core to the Irish since the founding of the Irish state. It's been very important in our history. We want to keep our neutrality active and not to be hiding in the wings. Irish citizens demand that our government retains its neutrality, and in so doing does not allow our airports to be used by the American military apparatus. This is happening. It's been happening for a number of years, and we argue that this is a breach of our neutrality and we want it ended. So it's very important that neutral countries speak up for neutrality and play active roles, and Ireland wants to continue to do this, and the anti-war movement in Ireland has indeed a huge task on its hand so that we retain that neutrality. We need the support of the European peace movement to do that, and we would love to be a focus for peace building in Europe as a continued neutral and peace-loving country.
Thank you, Iman. That was really a very positive voice. The next one is Ulla. You raised your hand.
Yes, first of all, I would ask if there is any Swedish participant who could tell more about the Stockholm Plus 50 meeting in June, end of May, beginning of June in Stockholm, because that is, of course, a very, very historic meeting too. And I have not so much knowledge about it, but I hope there is somebody. Then I would say, since Iman was speaking so bravely about neutrality, you know that we have collected 2 times over 100 organizations supporting President Niinistö's, the Finnish president's suggestion for an OSCE summit in Helsinki 2025. And he was braving when he did that he got support from Moscow, from Washington, from Beijing, and from Berlin. And now, of course, the whole suggestion has disappeared, because since Finland is applying for NATO membership, Russia wouldn't come here. So, Iman, could that be arranged in Ireland?
Okay, that was an invitation, Iman, and that was the question also to put more pressure on the Finnish government to stop these worst decisions. But, you know, now the next one is Tamara. And I think, Tamara, you will add something also to the NATO summit in Madrid. There will be a huge demonstration on Sunday, the 26th. Please put this in your calendar. 26th demonstration, and there will be an anti-militaristic 24 hours peace wave around the whole world from the 25th to the 26th, where we will have actions for 2 hours in all parts of the world, which is organized together by World Beyond War and IPB. And we will announce this next week, and then you can see more detailed information. It will be one of the biggest peace actions of the last year, 24 hours peace wave around the world. There's also a counter summit in Madrid, so there will be a lot of activities. And Tamara raised her hand to add more to Madrid, and I think some of the actions in Canada. Tamara, the floor is to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara Lawrence. I'm with the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom Canada and the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace. I wanted to let you know that Science for Peace has just has just hired me for 1 day a week, 6 to 8 hours, to be their new researcher on their NATO to neutrality working group. For the past 3 years in Canada, we have been working hard to raise opposition to politicians and to the public about NATO. And this campaign is going to ramp up over the next year. And we are planning demonstrations against NATO from June 25th to June 30th. We're calling for Canada-wide actions. And I just wanted to encourage everybody to, to continue to have courage to speak out and to resist NATO very directly. And also to have courage to speak out about this NATO proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. We need to have the courage to reframe the narrative about this war in Ukraine. And I hope that the organizers of this important session today, Reiner and Ulla, will save the chat and share, because there are some great resources and contact information in there. In the chat, I put some links to references that WILP Canada has produced. So we have a 40-page report that I wrote called Soaring: The Harms and Risks of Fighter Jets and Why Canada Must Not Buy a New Fleet. We've been working for 12 years to stop Canada from buying a new fleet of fighter jets, and Canada just announced that we are in negotiations to buy the F-35. Our campaign hasn't stopped. We are still working very hard to stop the Trudeau government from buying these terrible warplanes. So this report might be useful to you. It is in English, but we have fact sheets, 2-page fact sheets about the harms and risks of fighter jets in English and in French. The other fact sheets that we have in English and in French, there are 2 pages, so they can be easily printed out, is on NATO being a threat to people and the planet. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And then Reiner, I'm hoping that you could speak more about the OSCE and the OSCE and Russia and what's happening with that. Thanks.
Okay, I will put this on my list. So I have 4 more hands. The next one is Oleg, then Andrew, then Evelyn, and then Eric. So you know also the line. And Oleg, the floor is to you now.
Thank you, Reiner, and thank you, colleagues. It is very interesting to discuss this topic. And I live in the northwest part of the Russia, close to St. Petersburg, in the Gulf of Finland region. And I'd like to inform you about the new risks which we will get if the NATO, if Finland and Sweden will be part of the NATO. And one of the new risks is it will be high risk if so-called civil nuclear objects, I mean nuclear power plants in the Baltic Sea, will be destroyed. Now, maybe you know, we have more than 35 nuclear reactors around the Baltic Sea and spent nuclear fuel. And when, as you know, the Russian army take under the control of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, it was high risk to destroy this nuclear power plant. So the result, and I think we can say that now all nuclear power plants have a part of the military strategy. So we have no anymore so-called civil nuclear technology. All nuclear technologies is military. And we have high risk if the nuclear power plants in the Baltic Sea region will be destroyed. Another risk, my colleagues from Siberia lobby to change the location of the international nuclear storage, which is in Siberia now. They recommend to move this international nuclear waste storage to Murmansk region close to the Russian-Finnish border. So if but now Russian state corporation not support this idea. But if Finland and Sweden will be part of the Russia, I think it is more real that Russian nuclear industry will use this chance to construct the international nuclear storage, spent nuclear fuel storage close to the Russian-Finnish border. And what can we do? One of the ideas we discussed with our Scandinavian colleague from Finland and from Norway and from Sweden, the idea is to promote more deep transboundary cooperation between the people, between the regional authorities, between municipal authorities. And I think it will be a good basis for the alternative of the monopoly of the national authorities in Russia and in other countries. If Finland and Sweden will be part of the NATO, it means the decision-making process will be in Washington and in Moscow. But the regional people around the line of the confrontation not involved, have no chance to participate in decision-making process. So I think it is new stakeholders, I mean regional authorities, regional municipal authorities, and regional NGO. I think I'm ready to discuss with my Finnish and Norwegian colleague about how to organize such cooperation and how to involve these new stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oleg. So I have 4 more on the list, and I think I would like to close the list because we agreed to have a meeting about 1 hour and 1 hour. I take number 5 on the list, and then I close the speakers list that we can summarize a little bit at the end. So I have Andrew, Evelyn, Eric, Karl-Heinz, and Anna-Maria Nilsson. Andrew, the floor is to you. You have to unmute yourself, otherwise no one can hear you. Go ahead.
Good. Listen, I'm very happy to be here with you. I've been for many years as a silent diplomat, working very secretly within the frame of the enemy, which is working within NATO, not for NATO, never getting money, because as a silent diplomat, you have to be neutral, which implies that my wife and me have been financing the peace mission for more than 20 years. And this implies that I've always stayed independent. And what I managed so far is to trigger within NATO doubt about the role. And it happened all because I used a shifting of narrative. And this is a path that I will go on exploring and using, and which I use further to establish communication within politics and military. And it is that we switch the concept of enemy from the people, from the Russians, from Putin, which is a lie, it's invented, it's an invented concept, towards the reality, which is violence itself as a phenomenon. Yeah, but this implies that we need to do some positive work, not just the destructive criticism or the constructive criticism against what we do not want, because I agree with all of it. We do not have any security if we have an army that is trained to cause trauma. We cause exactly the opposite. Every shot that is done from a gun induces more trauma. It's dangerous. So what we have to do is, what I recommend is switching the concept of enemy in the main narrative in the general public. This needs to be addressed to the general public and to media. I'm talking to journalists every day, and every day I'm doing this reframing, and it helps. We are progressing. So the first thing is that no man is an enemy to another man. Yeah, no woman is an enemy to another woman. No child is an enemy to another child. The enemy for all of humankind is a system. It's a violent system which needs to be interpreted, understood, worked at, and this is done by reducing trauma and increasing empathy. And this implies that the military has no training for that, so it's useless. And then I have just put in the chat a document which I've just uploaded right now. Sorry, Ulla, because I've not waited now. I've uploaded it immediately so that it's available. And in this document, I have introduced a verbatim protocol, which is, I've been in a NATO session in 2014 on the 4th of June, in which the US expresses verbis, that it would go to war with Russia. There is no Ukraine. Ukraine is a pretext. I'm not able to publish this, you know, because we've had, as a silent diplomat, you get visitors in the middle of the night, your home gets burned down. We had several kidnappings. It's a hard life. So I'm not able, for example, to expose these words fully, but I've done some of it in that link which I've passed. And then I've exposed some, you know, the verbatim protocol of what Jamie Shee said. And Jamie Shee has been the speaker of NATO for years, for decades. And this guy has very clearly expressed—
Andrew, can you also come to an end?
Yeah, to the end, yes.
Thank
on
you.
the 19th of April, that NATO is there to create deterrence through winning wars. So it's causing trauma. Yeah, and this is their Achilles foot. You know, it's their Achilles foot. We have to just, you know, say you have to stop causing trauma, etc., etc. So the change of narrative is, in my understanding, a soft power tool that is very, very strong. Okay, that would be it.
Thank you, Andrew. And I know that all of us has to tell much more. So I all have to ask all of you to concentrate on the most important information you want to spread today and put more in the chat, that we will put the chat and keep the chat so nothing will be lost. Evelyn, the floor is to you.
Well, I think, thank you very much. Thank you for including me in this meeting. I'm in Canada with the Civilian Peace Service Canada. And I think the universe was very kind in having Andrew speak just before me, because he mentioned the crucial point of the need for individuals to interact with individuals and how crucial it is that such issues as empathy be included in professional work. That brings me to my point. My point, the point was raised that environmentalists and peace builders should come together. And I would say environmentalists have been very successful in being accepted as professionals. Peace builders have not. They are still largely seen as well-meaning amateurs in fields beyond the peace field. Inside, we know how complex the world, the work is. So my 3 points are: one, that peace builders need to find common ground as peace professionals, based not just on skills and not just on values, but on both skills and values. And we have a methodology for assessing against these on a professional basis as one building block in the infrastructure for peace that GAMAP has been talking to you all about. So my first point is, I believe that we need to come together, but we need to come together as professionals with values and competencies, standards. My second point is, I believe the voice of the OSCE is getting lost in all of this discussion because the focus is all on NATO. And I do believe we have this important counterpoint and would love to hear more about how one can balance the two. My third point is, in regards to peace professionalism, if there is a meeting next year of peace builders in Finland, I would very much like peace professionalism standards and competencies and values to be on the agenda. And my final point is, I have heard that there is an online appeal for an immediate ceasefire and negotiated peace. So while we're talking about the longer term solutions, would it be possible somehow to send out and find a global platform for beginning with a call for an immediate ceasefire and negotiated peace as the starting point? Thank you very much.
Thank you, But thank you also for being absolutely in time. And the next one is Eric. The floor is to you, Eric.
Okay, what I'm observing in this whole situation that's been going on for the past 20 years at least is what I call manufactured hysteria. Basically, the people are under control by having an ongoing soap opera of the narrative that is controlled by the elites who are basically demanding hegemony, and they'll use war. That is, war has been what's happening for years. And you talk with most people about.
Eric, I can't hear you anymore. There is something, I think it's not only my problem, so maybe there is something with your microphone. Eric, maybe you check your microphone and I will take the next speaker and then I come back to you. Okay, thank you so much. For Karl-Heinz, you are the next, and then I'm coming back to Eric. Karl-Heinz, the floor is
Okay,
yours.
Reiner, I thank you very much. So I try to make it in shorter than 3 minutes. I'm German and have been living for 36 years in the Austrian mountains. When I talk to my friends and to my family in Austria and in Germany, more than 50% say, okay, Putin is a terrible guy. Russia has the own responsibility for this terrible war. And when I say, my friends, what about the history till the February 22? Okay, they never discussed about the American part of all this trouble we have now. So for this reason, I have been working for 30 years on a honorary basis on an information system, which tries to combine all in order to collect all information to a certain point or a theme, and then we decide on a basic democratic base what is the value of this information, and everybody can see in future in the German-speaking countries what the different meanings of the information are. So my hope is, or I ask you kindly, Reiner, we discussed on Tuesday about this point in German language. My point is that we come together and have a basic democratic info system, fair, face-to-face, and independent. I think this is very, very necessary and very important to say, to have an opposition to the mainstream media and believers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric, do we want to try it again? No, you have a problem. Please try to solve your problem. Then I will give the floor to Anna-Maria. Anna-Maria, the floor is to you.
Yes, thank you. I am from Denmark, as you know, and I'm a part of the Fredsinitiative called Peace Initiative that is building up in Denmark since the end of April. Today, we have had a meeting and in Elsinore and started an organization as a part of this peace initiative. And my point is, we have to start some organization before. We cannot wait until the peace conference in 1 year. We have to start to do something from the ground. The only way we can change the politics is by activity from the ground. We have to go out and change the people's way of thinking by speaking, by making actions in the streets, by making meetings with people who are maybe more professional than we are. We are not professional, but I think we cannot wait to be professional. We have to go out and do something now. And we have to mention any threats. We have heard a lot of them today. We have a lot of things to go out and tell people, and they are not told by the normal media. We have a very, very important role to go and tell the truth about the war, about NATO's role, about the proxy war in Ukraine, and all these questions about the rule of the European Union and their plans of going out and make proxy war in Africa, so European Union can fight China and in Africa. And all these stuff, we have a lot of work to do. And I wish you all the best luck. And then we meet maybe in a year, maybe in Dublin, maybe in Helsinki. And then thank you for your initiative.
Thank you, Anna-Maria. And let me add one point to Denmark. I wish you all the best for your referendum on June 1st, which is a referendum which should change the specific role of the foreign and military policy of Denmark in the European Union. And also the government want to get the support for the 2% military spending in Denmark. And I know by being in contact with a lot of friends that there is a quite big mobilization in your country fighting against that. And I think we press all the fingers that under the difficult circumstances now, and we know the propaganda and how strong is the propaganda, that your referendum will be in the same way successful like all the other referendum Finland was doing against European Union militarization politics. So that is my comment to Denmark. Let's see what will be the result. It's a difficult fight, but I'm very happy that people in your country are engaged, protesting against this militarization of your country. Dear colleagues and dear friends, this was not a meeting with very concrete results. This was a meeting of exchange. This was a meeting for understand that in many parts of Europe and over Europe, there are people concerned about the actual situation and mobilizing. And I will underline some points. First of all, no one will wait till 2023. We need actions now. We need actions in every city, every village, every country for peace and against the war. We have to promote, in a positive sense, neutrality. We have to fight for ceasefire as a first step for a peaceful solution in the Ukraine war. And, you know, I can only underline that IPB and the World Trade Unions were announcing an appeal on May 8th and 9th, calling for an immediate ceasefire. And I only can ask all of you to push again and again, also your government, to play a more active role. Instead of sending weapons, instead of sending more military purposes to Ukraine, which kills in enlarge and making the war longer, please force your countries that they start peace initiative, that they start to bring the parties together to negotiate wherever they want to negotiate, in Istanbul, in Jerusalem, wherever. The push is needed for negotiations and ceasefire, not for more weapons to Ukraine. There are even too many weapons. The next point is to say we have to change the narrative. Then change the narrative means we have to climb from a military war narrative to a peace narrative. That is the huge change, which is the background of all our work. And for that, I hope that the Common Security Report IPB was developing with ITOC and the Olaf Palme Institute will be hopeful as a guideline with a lot of suggestions, not only for Europe, but for many parts of the world, for changing the narrative from a military logic and a war logic to a peace logic. This, I think, is very important. This brings to the question of OSCE. The first problem of OSCE in the war is when a war starts, OSCE is never playing a role any longer. They are only playing a role when there is ceasefire and negotiations. So we have to fight that there is again a role of OSCE in the Ukraine-Russia and Ukraine conflict itself. This is one piece. The second is we have to strengthen the Ukraine, the OSCE. The money of the EU is less than 100 of the money which is spending for NATO. So we definitely have to strengthen the OSCE as the peaceful alternative, as inclusive system in Europe. NATO is exclusive. It excludes Russia and other countries. OSCE is inclusive, and it includes all countries. And the peaceful system in Europe can only be an inclusive system which included all European countries. So that is a very important point for me. And then we have to protest wherever we can. And, you know, we have a huge protest agenda in front of us. We mentioned the summit in Madrid, big peace demonstration in Madrid. We mentioned the actions in Stockholm. There will be huge action in Stockholm related to the 50 years anniversary of the first UN Environmental Conference, bringing together that environment and peace are two sides of the same coin. And to say it again, there will be no climate without war, and there will be no war when we not solve, there will be no end of the wars when we not solve the climate problem. So we have to bring this together, and my colleagues and my friends in Sweden and other countries are working for actions and activities in Sweden. And I can only ask above all my Scandinavian colleagues and friends, please join these activities in Stockholm in the beginning of June. Then we have, this is for Germany and the surrounding countries, a very important data. We have the G7 summit. I have not to tell you what is the G7. These 7 countries are spending about 70% or 65% of the military budgets of the world. So we have to protest against the G7 summit. There will be a huge demonstration on the 25th of June in Munich and in the following days in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, because these leaders of the countries are meeting in Elmau, in one of the most beautiful areas and hotels Germany ever had. And hopefully we can have a lot of protests there. So then we have these actions in Ramstein, and the biggest US base outside of the US, the single base for the drones attack in the world. No drones attacks without the US airbase in Ramstein, because there is a relay station. We have to bring the drone signals to the goal. So there are the actions at the same weekend, like the G7 summit, 24th and 25th of June. So there are a lot of opportunities, and I know that all of you have more opportunities in your countries. Let us make this May, June to a month of protest, and then let us also continue our discussion. So I don't want to postpone our activities and discussion to next year. I want to show us maybe a goal where we can meet together, evaluate what we have done up to now, and have discussions about future common actions. Above all, prepare together the 50 years anniversary of the KSZE conference in 2025. And maybe we will meet not in Helsinki, but in Dublin. Maybe we will meet in Helsinki and Dublin. We can have further discussions about that. So what we've wanted to do today is to show that we are alive, even when this was again a bad signal that Sweden and Finland are joining NATO, that we are trying to continue our work. We will put all your addresses together. We will put together all the information. We try to put together the information. We will inform you about future activities. And I'm quite sure that we will soon come back together again, continue our discussion with old and new friends. And I, at the end, can only wish you all the best, all success in your fight for peace and disarmament. It was great to meet you today. It was great that we had this exchange. A lot of interesting points were coming on the table. We have to work on all these points. We have to share our opinions, and we have to come closer together. We are the big family of peace-loving people. We have to make these families stronger, and we have to bring many of the peace-loving people again on the streets. That is needed in this very political difficult situation. Thank you so much for today, and I wish you all the best for your future activities, and we will see you again quite soon. Thank you so much.